Hello everyone and welcome to Therapy Sims, and this episode we're going to be talking about your first day of counselling school, what it's going to be like, what you need to do, what might come up. Now bear in mind every tutor does things slightly differently, every college will do things slightly differently, but this is based on my knowledge on how I've done it and how it's been as a student, and it seems to be, I guess, the accepted way of doing things. So take it with a pinch of salt. Don't expect this to be a full this is what will happen thing, just a basic idea of your first day. So step 1. Before you go, what are you going to need? Always best to be prepared. Now, some colleges, they might have given you a reading list. It's not really the thing that you have to read all of these books. Well, maybe eventually. But it may be an idea to just read through the chapter headings to give you an idea of the subjects you'll be studying. Maybe read one that interests you. Textbooks aren't the same as novels. You can dive in anywhere. Some of them lead from chapter to chapter, yes, but generally you're not going to get any spoilers by going ahead and reading a subject that really interests you. It's always going to be best with learning that you learn what you enjoy. We will always learn better that way. So maybe go through the reading list, just see what's there. Now the technical, practical stuff. This is all going to sound, I'm sure, very simple, but it's the kind of thing you might forget. So, a notebook to take notes. The chances are your tutor will be talking and giving you things to digest and maybe look at later, to take notes on the homework that's needed, anything like that. Have a notebook. And, of course, a pen. Useful. You wouldn't believe the amount of times a perfectly grown-up, sensible adult has forgotten a pen. So, a few pens, because it might be nice to lend them a pen too. Definitely you'll make a friend that way. Highlighters, they're always useful for making notes in textbooks, for really highlighting those bits of your notes that stand out for you. They're a good tool to have. And a folder. Chances are you'll be giving worksheets or handouts, and you'll want to keep them nice, especially if it's a year course or a 2-year course. These bits of paper can get very muddled up, so it'll be good to have something just to hold everything together for you. No recording devices. Some students, they want to record what the tutor's saying so they can go over it later. This is not a good idea. In this class, you're studying therapy. There will be some sensitive subjects are gone over, and confidentiality is very important. I will discuss that more later on though. Now the setup of the classes, they can be weekly, some courses they're monthly, some are 3 hours long or up to 7 hours long. So the chances are for like a 3-hour course you'll be getting a 15-minute break halfway through, which means finding a coffee shop hopefully, or somewhere to have a wander if you need to. If it's a full lesson, you'll get a lunch break, generally an hour and a couple of 15-minute breaks. So it's good to think about maybe a packed lunch, or to find out if there's anywhere around the college to eat. I've taught different courses in different places, and if they're on the weekend especially, this can mean that there's no canteens open at the college or the uni, and maybe there's nowhere actually close enough to buy any food. You do not want to be learning on an empty stomach. You'll be able to concentrate better if your body is comfortable. So bring a water bottle, bring some snacks that you can maybe have on your desk, but nothing crunchy because that can get really annoying. Other than that, do you know what? You just bring yourself. Step 2. What's the first day like? Now, walking into a classroom where you know there's going to be people and strangers, it can be quite daunting, so it can be useful to know basically what to expect. The classroom setup will generally be a horseshoe of chairs. You don't generally have desks. It's set up so you can all be facing each other and there's no boundaries. Therapy classes rely heavily on you learning about people from each other. So hearing different points of view is incredibly important, and having that open communication with each other. Most colleges, most tutors prefer that for you. So there will be lots of tutor-led discussions, so think carefully about where you want to sit, because chances are you'll be stuck with it. A strange or maybe understandable thing happens with these group dynamics. Week after week, or even month after month, students gravitate to the same positions. It's like it's their chair, their place. It's important. It makes you feel comfortable. So make sure you're comfortable from the start. I suggest trying to get there a bit early, but not too early, or you'll just be staring at the tutor and they'll be having to stare at you, and they'll probably still be trying to set up. And from being on both sides, tutor and student, trust me, it gets a bit weird. So a few minutes early, just to make sure you're there and you get your seat and you're calm and relaxed before it starts. Step 3. Now to the class itself. Chances are there'll be an icebreaker exercise first off, just for you lot to get to know each other. You may have to introduce yourself, or maybe be put into a pair to introduce each other. Some tutors might get imaginative and use props, but essentially it's to break that discomfort and vague embarrassment at being in a room full of strangers, and to show that you are all in the same boat. If you are nervous of this, think of it this way. Chances are loads of the other students will be nervous too. So on your go, you get to show them that it's okay, that the walls aren't going to cave in, that if you stumble a little, oh look, no one really minds. It would actually then be a really helpful thing to do and a really kind thing to do. And I'm making the assumption that you're going into therapy. That means you want to be helpful and that you are kind. So go with it and get to know your fellow students. You will be working with them a lot. Next, you'll probably be on to the class contract. It's a list of things all students and the tutor must agree to respect each other and for the smooth running of the class. It's generally things like phones being on silent, no scrolling through Twitter while either the tutor or another student is talking. It's quite frankly rude, and it shows that person that you're not listening to what they're saying. And listening is kind of the job, so practice it. However you would want to be treated, obviously you treat everyone else like that. Personally, as a tutor, I always say if you get an important phone call, then just excuse yourself and take it outside. We are adults after all, and if the toaster catches fire, then it's going to be us they call. That's absolutely fine and it's understood. But if you're in there and it's just a silly text or something that can wait, then you wait. Other things that might be listed will be talking over each other, don't do it, which sounds obvious. But in that moment where you're really passionate about something and you really want to get your point across, we can all forget. And if you're saying to yourself that you wouldn't, well, you're either a perfected human being or you need to maybe be a bit more honest with yourself, which is a huge part of learning any therapy, and I'll get to that too. Then there's confidentiality, which is why you shouldn't record in class. You'll be discussing, as I said, very sensitive, often painful subjects, and the opinions of your fellow students will be invaluable learning for you. Textbooks can teach you tools and theory, but it's your fellow human that will teach you humanity. Because of this, they could end up sharing some personal stuff, which they've chosen to do so in front of you, but they have not chosen to do so in front of your friends and family. The same with a client. They share so much with you, but they don't want to think of you racing home and telling a bunch of strangers, as your friends and family are to them. Your fellow students' friends and families are strangers to you as well, right? Would you want them knowing all your business? Now, the answer to that might be that you don't actually mind. Well, that's fair enough. But you never know who will mind. Some people are very polite and they will say, oh, it's okay, I don't mind. But yes, they do. So we just keep it all in the classroom. It's like Vegas, but not as shiny. As always, be kind. Now, the tutor may add some things to the contract that helps them. Helps the class run better and just they know what's coming up, they know what's needed. They've taught a few other classes and learnt what you lot get up to. They know what needs to be done so that everybody gets a good learning experience. For example, I like to ask people if they're going out of the class for an okay reason, like needing the loo or answering that phone call, that they give me just a little nod or a thumbs up just to make sure I know they're okay. Otherwise, I'll probably assume that there's something wrong and they're upset and I will go and check on them, which could be very embarrassing if they've just gone to the loo. Next, there might be information on housekeeping, where the fire escapes are, if there's anywhere around to eat, times and dates of the lessons, and how the course is set up. Generally speaking, anything therapy kind of course is generally marked using criteria. Criteria are a list of questions you have to prove that you know the answers to and that you understand. Either the course will be set up quite rigidly with certain criterion being asked for in certain pieces of work, or you'll be asked to put whatever criteria you think is best into whatever piece of work you can fit it into. But you'll have to hit each of these criteria to pass. I suggest you read through the criteria list when you get it. Read the questions carefully. This again sounds obvious, but I was once given a really well-written essay about how to use counselling with a specific issue. The trouble was the course was hypnotherapy and he had to redo it. Save yourself some time and some worry. Read each question, each part of the question carefully. Look at the words that they've used. I'll probably do another video on criteria and what's expected, and also the different types of work. You'll be given essays or journals, and they are quite different things. But this is your first day. Don't worry about that. All of that might take up half of the class, and then you'll get your break. You'll be able to mingle with your fellow students, stretch your legs, and start to get to know each other. This leads me to a little step 4, just kind of shoved in the middle of step 3. How you are to be. A little note here on behalf of the introverted student, on the more shy or the overwhelmed student. If they want to wander off and be by themselves, let them. You may like a crowd of people. You may like to have your lunch in a group and go through things or just chat and unwind. Not everyone is the same. This is incredibly important for a therapist of any type to know. You are training to be a therapist, and your clients will all be different and need different things. Start working on that acceptance now, that acceptance of others and how they are, even if it differs from you greatly. It is not a personal affront, and it doesn't actually mean that there's something wrong if someone wants to be on their own, to have their own company, to just walk and think and unwind. And another note to those wandering students, that's okay, but maybe consider joining the others just for the odd lunch or coffee break. You are there to learn about others too, to get to know how other people are and to get to know yourself. And you might surprise yourself. So everyone, be open to each other. Be open to how each other needs to be and their particular style of learning. After your break, you'll be back and probably onto some actual learning. You might go through some theorists or a basic idea of the type of therapy you're there to study. There might be a practical, which is generally a role play, which are common in therapy classes. It is a vocational course after all. You're learning to actually do the job, so you're going to practice doing the job. A role play generally means a triad. This is 3 students practicing together. One as the therapist, one as the client, and one as the observer. An observer stays silent throughout the whole session, which may be a 5-minute session or an entire hour by the end of it. Afterwards, the observer would share what they observed. And it's about the therapist, what they did. It's not to comment on the client and their issue, whatever they talked about. A role play is to practice skills, not to actually give therapy. It can turn out that talking out loud in class with someone that you trust, your fellow student, can actually help you, absolutely. But these role plays are for the student being the therapist. It is for them to practice their skills. And the observer, you're going to be commenting on that and any reaction that you saw was good or not so helpful coming from the client. So remember, you're not there to fix the client. Spoiler warning, we can't fix anyone. There'll be a video coming up on that statement, trust me. The client will either be given a scenario to work through, a made-up issue and a made-up person, or be asked to bring something of their own to share. Remember that confidentiality? It comes in here, very much so. But don't worry about this. You will not be expected to spill things that you are not ready or comfortable to talk about. You just have to give the therapist something to work with. You can make it up if you like. You can talk about something that's already fixed and gone and you're fine with. You share what you are comfortable with. And then there's the therapists themselves. Don't panic. You are all in the same boat. You're not expected to perform a miracle. It's just an opportunity for you to practice, one that you probably won't get outside of class. And this is the first class. Even if there is a role play, it'll probably just be an active listening exercise. So you just listen to the client and then at the end you say what you heard. It'll be fine. Step 5. The biggest element. As always, it's you. On a practical level, you are an adult. There is no giving you a detention or calling your mother if you don't do your homework or you don't use the classes and role plays well. It's on your shoulders, not the tutor's. The tutor presents the learning. It's up to you to learn. You will get as much out of your course as you want. It's down to you, which means you're in control. It's actually a pretty nice position to be in. And then the emotional. There is a quote that's been attributed to Carl Rogers, the father of person-centered therapy. That's my thing. And I swear no one can find a link to it. It's like the Mandela effect. We all swear he said it, but I've never found it or anyone who has. But you know what? Whoever said it, it stands true. That is, you can't take anyone further than you've taken yourself. You're training for a job where you'll be sitting in a room for an hour with someone whose heart is breaking, who's harmed. They are never there for just a nice chat. Something is wrong, and you will hear terrible things. You need to be okay. Not perfect, okay. You need to know yourself before it comes up in a session. You do not want to be sitting there hearing somebody talk about something and realise that it gets to you. What are you going to do? You need to at the very least know that it's coming, know basically about yourself so you can hold it for that hour. Be there 100% for that client, and then afterwards go cuddle the dog. You need to be able to hear other people and recognise how it relates to you. And as I said earlier, listening to your fellow students, their opinions on things, how life has been to them. That is going to be such amazing learning for you. It really is. So, self-reflection is generally a really important part of learning any therapy. It's important to know the tools and the theories behind it all, of course. But ultimately, it's just you and them in that room. You need to be prepared for their safety and your own. And then, the end of the day. Believe it or not, it will come. Everything comes to an end. The best day in the world will come to an end. So will the worst. And so will your first day of counselling school. You lived, you survived. You have to go back again, just to let you know. But it'll be fine. You soak up what your tutor says. You soak up what your fellow student says. You listen to the homework. You really hear every word. How they say it, how they've set out the question. Really know what they're expecting from you. Maybe you want to go home and go through your class notes. Rewrite them even so they make a bit more sense for you. Maybe you want to read a chapter of one of the textbooks that relates to what you've just learned. Or maybe you just want to go away and just think. Just let it move around in your mind and really get to know what you've just learned about yourself and other people. As I said, you are adults. This is your learning. You do it however is best for you. And that's it. That brings us to the end. I hope this has been helpful to you. As I said, I'll be doing other videos more related to the subjects I've talked about in here and many more. I have a long list of things to get through. But if there is any subject or anything that you're worried about or you're concerned about or you'd just like to know more about, leave a comment down below. Let me know what you would like me to do a video on and I'll do it. When I get to it, I'll do it. But thank you very much for watching. I do hope you found something that's useful in this for you and that it helps. And your first day, just remember, all the others are in the same boat. Even the tutor is probably a little bit nervous of how it's going to go and what kind of people they're going to get and if they'll do a good job. You are a room full of humans and we're basically all right. So just go for it and enjoy your learning. See you next time. Bye.